Okay, it is Saturday, April the something. April the 23rd. When I last came in here, there were two calves in here. Where in the world did the other one go? Anyway, Wilson pitched out this back pen today, and apparently didn't really give them much bedding. We can fix that. But before we clean the barn, which I have to do very shortly, I gotta check to see if I gotta haul that spreader full of manure out. I don't think I will. I think we'll be able to squeeze it, but I should figure that out. I think we'll be able to fit today's load in. So hopefully I won't have to haul it twice. Okay, so first course of action will be figuring out how to get out of here. I actually don't believe there's much room back here. There is not. Wonderful. You know what, I'm gonna climb over the spreader. It is really, really, really muddy out here. And before I can totally leave this pasture for these heifers that are right behind the barn, I have to pull away from this door to that pen, and then I have to shut the door. So we have no more unwanted exchange of animals, which has already happened today. The brakes on this tractor are really not very good at all, so gotta kinda do some thinking before I can just park the thing somewhere. I'm not sure what we're gonna do with that second heifer that's supposed to be in here. I don't even know where she is. She's probably out here somewhere, but I'm not too worried about it. Last I heard somebody talking about it, they weren't too worried either. But it's really interesting trying to traverse through the mud out here in sneakers. It's not going very well. Now I gotta make my way over to the barn cleaner, which is in a different heifer pasture. And I'll have to go through another gate. First I gotta close the one I just went through. Wasn't perfect, but it'll be fine. Usually first I will sweep up the cow's food, but since I had just fed silage right before we cleaned the barn, that was unnecessary today. And then I'll go up and down the aisle and I'll scrape it off, and then walk up behind the cows and scrape off the platforms, get all the poop off their platforms, and throw up any dry bedding that they might have kicked off, which they happen to do a lot, and make sure that the waste actually goes out and that the good stuff stays. Then I just sit in here and wait for the barn to clean. Wilson's inside, kind of watching everything, making sure nothing plugs up. It does tend to get plugged up right in this opening right here, coming out of the barn sometimes if the gutters are really full. It's usually not an issue, but it's good to have someone in there watching just in case it does happen. It's also abnormally warm today. It's almost 80 degrees out, and it's actually pretty windy. It's not crazy, but it's more than usual. And it's also very wet, so it's pretty humid outside. So I actually am gonna sit in here with the air going, because otherwise it gets really, really toasty in here. Okay, the barn cleaner just finished. So we're gonna start her up and get going. To be honest, I'm still not exactly sure where I want to haul this. This spring kind of warmed up earlier than it usually does, and the frost went out earlier. So even back in like March, I was kind of, well, it would be raining instead of snowing, so I would be going out into a field, and I would be making tracks. So I'm kind of very careful where I want to haul it now, especially when it's wet like this. I already covered 2 of these hay fields out here, and there's a third field that we planted oats with alfalfa in last year. So there's new seeding alfalfa coming up this year that I really do not want to drive in, and I'm sure my dad doesn't want me driving in it. So lately I've been pulling out on this pasture hill out here, but I can also go up to the woods. If you remember last year, we had a couple patches of sedan grass up there on that hayfield. Sometimes if it's wet, I'll just drive up to the woods and haul on one of those patches because I know that'll get dug up before we do anything, so I don't worry too much about making tracks in those. This field that's out here by the cow pasture in the lane, that one is also getting torn up and something's getting planted in there. I don't really know what, but I already covered that one completely. So I'll make my way out this direction and I'll see what the pasture hill's like. I might halt there. If not, I'll head up to the woods and do it on one of those sedan grass patches. I'm thinking I'll be fine driving on this hill, so I think that's just what I'm gonna do. Alright, we're gonna slow her down to first gear because it's getting thinner back there, so we can put it on a little heavier. I'm trying not to put it on too thick at this point. It's late April now, and hopefully the cows will be coming out here in within a few weeks. I want stuff to be growing, but I don't want it so thick that they can't eat anything. And in general, as spring rolls around, I tend to drive faster while I haul the manure, just so I'm not caking everything in cow manure when I don't have to be. Alright, the spreader is pretty much cleaned out. Now it is time for me to take this scraper right here and scrape off the spreader. I don't really trust just setting my camera everywhere without it falling over, so I'm just gonna do that off and then I'll come back when I'm done. All I gotta do is just take it and scrape off all the surfaces. It's not as important once it warms up and it's staying warmer overnight, but especially in the winter when it's freezing and colder, if this stuff freezes to the spreader, then we're kind of in trouble. Okay, now that I got the spreader scraped off, I can finish up and head back home. Once I get home, usually the next thing on my list is to bring in a wet baleage bale. It's typical for us to buy hay over the winter, and we like to get square bales because they're a lot easier to store and we can usually fit a lot more of them inside the barn. So we just got a load of baleage square bales the other day, and it's usually my job to bring one of those in every night for the boys to feed after milking. I plan on bringing this bale into back here, but first I gotta move this bale out of the way, so I'm gonna push it against this wall because the door is over on this side. So I'm gonna take this bale and I'm gonna push it up against the wall, but first I gotta get everything out of the way. So I don't like stuff in my way when I'm trying to work. Alright, now I've got the second bale inside the door. I'm gonna set it right on the floor, but before I do that, I'm gonna cut the plastic off. One thing that I've found with these bales in particular, the strings don't hold the bale together very well. They're quite loose. So most of the job of keeping this bale's shape is done by the plastic and not the strings. So if I cut the entire plastic off, the bale is going to split into pieces and then it's just going to fall right down, and I don't want that. And I'm sure my brothers don't want that. So what I do is when I cut the bale, I cut it in half all the way around. And then I just take the bottom half off, and then I set it down, and then I can take the top half off, and then I'll have all the plastic off, it'll be on the floor, and it won't fall apart on me. And so far, it's worked quite well. So working with these bales have taught me a couple things. Number one, don't always trust these strings, they're quite loose. I've had a number of bales kind of fall apart off of my forks. And second, cut the bale's plastic off inside and not outside, because should the bale fall off your forks, you want it to fall where you want it and not out in the mud. Now really all that I have left to do is I guess gotta load up the feed cart a few times with some bedding, and I gotta take it into the barn and give the cows bedding since they're still staying inside overnight. So this job is pretty straightforward. I just load up a feed cart full of bedding, and then I just throw it underneath the cows. It's a good idea to not do too much, otherwise they just kick stuff into the gutter for absolutely no reason, and it's a pain. And obviously you don't want to give them too little, otherwise then it's pretty much pointless. You gotta find that good balance. And on a good day, I should be able to get the entire barn in probably about 2 loads, depending on how much George takes for his gutter bedding, because he does like to take stuff out of the stalls to bed the gutters with. So if he doesn't take a whole lot, there's a lot left from the day before, then I don't have to use as much bedding. Just kind of depends from day to day. After countless hours and hours of research, it was concluded that actually up to 88% of cows are less likely to kick people when they're happy. And we have found that bedding is a great way to make the cows happy. As you can see here, they're sitting down very nice and comfortable. They have something soft to sit on. So it's actually not just solely for the cow's comfort that we do this, but it's actually a safety measure that we impose here on our dairy to protect all of our employees from unnecessary kicking by cows. Alright, I got the cows all bedded, and I raked down all the extra bedding that was on the aisle and threw it into a stall. It took me probably about 15 to 20 minutes, and what's left in that feed cart out there is actually what remains of my second load, so it didn't take a whole lot of bedding today to finish them up, which is good. It's less for me to do, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate that it is now, let me check real quick, 6:05, and that there's still plenty of light in the sky. I really do appreciate that. In the winter, it's dark sometimes even before we start milking. So having the extra daylight is really good for the spirits. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.